On Tech News Today, Twitter makes life easier for users and harder for trolls. Plus, the FBI is looking at a school district's billion-dollar iPad buy. And can the big Sony Pictures hack get any worse? Oh yeah, yes it can. It's all coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, December 3rd, 2014. This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace recently launched the latest version of their platform, Squarespace 7, which has a completely redesigned interface, integrations with Getty Images and Google Apps, new templates, and an incredible feature called Cover Pages. Try the new Squarespace at squarespace.com and enter the offer code TNT at checkout to get 10% off. And by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used iPhone, iPad, and other Apple products are worth at Gazelle.com. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who reported. Welcome to the show. I'm Mike Elgan, and good morning, Mr. Nielsen.
Morning, Mike.
How you doing?
I'm good.
The weather is beautiful here in Petaluma. It's raining for the first time since...
Yeah, but I have to say, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Thank you. Wow.
Lovely.
Wow, this is kind of... Can you just keep that going the entire show? Yes. Yay.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Also, my twin brother, Marquez Brownlee's birthday is today.
Oh.
He got the talent, and I got the looks. So what are you going to do? Sorry, Mom. All right, well, we also have Katie Benner, a very popular co-anchor. Katie, I'm getting a lot of email saying, yay, Katie is awesome as a co-anchor.
Oh, that's nice. Great.
It's very nice, yeah. And I tend to agree with it. Now, Google announced something really interesting today. I've always been fascinated by reCAPTCHA. Now, reCAPTCHA comes from technology I think was developed at Carnegie Mellon and elsewhere. Google owns it. And basically, when you go to a site and they want you to prove that you're human, you have to type in either a number. That number is oftentimes captured from a Street View picture, and they're not really sure what the address is. It's house address. And they want hundreds of people to say, yeah, that's 247. And when they get enough people, they say, okay, that's the number. They enter it into their system. They basically have everybody doing slave labor for free to verify some of the stuff in their documents, also books that they scan. But now they've unveiled stunning new technology that allows you to prove you're human simply by clicking on a checkbox. You just click the button, and they say, yep, you're a human. And it's really fascinating. The way they do it is they look at all these subtle cues to see if you're human. They see how you move the mouse, and they see what kind of cookies you have. They check your browser. They sort of rifle through your system and say, yeah, that looks like the computer of a real person instead of a software bot. How amazing is this? That's the question.
Well, clearly you're amazed. So we're going to start with the premise that it's pretty amazing. But also, I mean, this is artificial intelligence at work. This is, this wouldn't be possible unless companies were already able to interpret and intuit the things that we were doing online as human beings. And I'm curious to see how long it will be before clever hackers create software that make them look more human.
The arms race has begun. Yeah. And so, yeah, they're going to have to come up with robots that, ultimately it's just going to be artificial intelligence robots coming up against the artificial intelligence verification thing, and it's going to be the war of the robots, and then eventually they're going to get together and take over, according to Stephen Hawking's. What's his name? No, not Spielberg, the physicist. Anyway, I better leave this topic behind and get to the news before I get in trouble. Twitter announced new tools for reporting harassment, making it faster and easier to protect against trolls, haters, bullies, stalkers, racists, misogynists, and creepy weirdos. The company also made their blocking feature a little bit more like actual blocking. Now, blocking a user not only prevents you from seeing their post, they can't see yours either, at least if they're logged in under the blocked account. The changes will gradually roll out this month with more promised in the future. I think it's clear, Katie Benner, that Twitter knows that they've got a big problem. There's, much of the stalking and harassment and bullying takes place on Twitter precisely because their tools are so weak. Essentially, the way to deal with a troll on Twitter is you have to go through a laborious process to report them, and then Twitter has a presumably laborious process to verify your complaint, and yet for the troll, they can sign up with a new account in seconds. And so there's an imbalance there that favors the trolls. Do you think this is going to have the desired effect, or is this too lightweight of an implementation?
I think that for Twitter, they want to start with this and see what happens and see how it works. And, if it's not enough, they could make more changes in the future. What's happening with Twitter is it's an extension of what's happening all over the web. You're seeing more rules come out that there are certain things and types of speech that just aren't acceptable, even if they're online, and they wouldn't be governed by freedom of speech. The Supreme Court's hearing a case right now about whether or not threats on social media like Facebook constitute the same sort of threats to harm somebody that they would in real life. So I think you're just sort of seeing a normalization of behavior on the web. So your Twitters and your Facebooks, people will be forced to conduct themselves more like they would in real life. And then sort of in the darker corners of the internet, you'll see more of the threatening speech and the hateful speech that these services are trying to stamp out.
I think that the cases where they try to establish legal precedents for going after the more extreme cases of, threats, actual threats to people's physical well-being kind of misses the larger problem with online hate speech, which is that certain types of people are more likely to be targeted by hate speech. And what happens, their response tends to be silence. And so certain types of people are being silenced. We're talking about minorities, women, transgender people, gay people, all kinds of people, different groups. And then other groups are not silenced. So the influence of some groups are being undermined while the others are not. And that's, I think, the larger problem. It's the silence. It's the person who goes away and stops talking and doesn't raise their voice that you never really think about or hear about because, of course, they're being silent. That, to me, is the bigger problem. Now, Twitter has 284 million active users, and yet they seem to get the lion's share of complaints about trolling. And I think it is because of this mechanism of how easy it is for the trolls and how hard it is to do something about trolls. And I just think that ultimately they're going to have to do, and they've actually promised to do this. They understand that this is the problem. They have to make it much harder to start a new account. You shouldn't be able to just go in there in 5 seconds and create a new fake account. It should take a while. Maybe make it take a day or something, or you have to wait. Or, something that makes it easier to report people than it does to create, route around the problem. So that's my view. But in the meantime, I think it's really tragic how many people have been suffering because of hate speech on Twitter and elsewhere as well. So anyway, interesting. I'm glad they're going in that direction, and they again have promised much more in the future. Yep. In just a sec, we're going to talk about a really interesting case of coming out of the education market. But first, I want to talk about Squarespace. You ought to have a website. You really should. No matter what, if you're watching this show, that means you're really interested in technology. You have passion about technology, and you can express that passion in a blog or a website. You're probably, if the indication of the interaction I have with many TNT fans is true, then you're probably an IT professional. You deal with technology professionally, and in that case, you should definitely have a blog that promotes yourself. You are the brand nowadays, and so you should really be promoting yourself. So the question is, where and how? How do you do a blog? Where do you do it? What's the best and easiest way? And of course, the best and easiest way for me, I've been using Squarespace for years, is clearly Squarespace. They have amazing templates, so your site is going to look amazing. And they have incredible hosting, so it's just super easy. It's a turnkey web site for just about anything you want to do online. Of course, Squarespace 7 is the new version of their platform, and it's so easy because you can just do editing right there in the same view that shows you what the actual website looks like. You don't have to toggle between views. It's super mobile friendly, so all of your pages and sites are going to look perfect on a smartphone. It's going to be essentially redesigned on the fly for those smartphone users, for tablet users, and so on. And of course, if you want to sell anything or raise money for a nonprofit or for any purpose, all subscription plan levels have e-commerce, which is very, very powerful. And it's super, super easy to use. And they have 24/7 tech support. The people who do the tech support are actually in their New York office, right there, sitting right there in the same room with the developers. They know what they're talking about. And of course, hosting is legendary and included. So start a free 2-week trial, no credit card required, and start building your website. When you decide to sign up for Squarespace, make sure you use the offer code TNT, and that'll get you 10% off. And to begin using Squarespace 7, if you're already a user, just go to the settings tab to activate all the new features. And it's kind of nice that they didn't sort of just have all that stuff change without permission. They're basically asking permission. I recommend that you grant permission. Go in there, change the settings, and get these new features if you're already a user. So Squarespace, start here and go anywhere. What an awesome site. Well, the FBI seized 20 boxes of documents from the Los Angeles Unified School District headquarters Monday as part of an investigation into the school's $1.3 billion with a B iPad purchase for 27 schools. LA School District is the nation's second biggest school district, by the way. One possible concern is that the bidding process may have unfairly favored Apple over alternative brands of tablets or laptops. Carolyn Porter covers education and other topics for the Wall Street Journal and joins us now for the very first time. Welcome to you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Now, why has the LA School District's iPad purchase been so controversial?
Well, it's been befallen by a variety of different controversies since its beginning. First, when they launched, which was a very quick launch, the students quickly figured out how to remove the security barriers, and so they were able to access things on the tablets that they were not supposed to access. And then from there, some teachers complained about a lack of implementation planning, like the fact that they weren't really clear on how to use them in the classroom effectively. Let's see. And then from there were concerns about the bidding process. You mentioned Apple, but also Pearson was a subcontractor, and Pearson is a very large education company that offers a variety of different products in the field. And so there were concerns.
We had a little Skype hiccup there, Carolyn. I'm sorry, we didn't catch the very end of it, but I think you were basically just pointing out, you were listing the various controversies, including the punchline, which is the bidding process. Now, why do they think that? And then I'll let Katie ask a question in just a sec. Sorry about that, Katie. I'm going to do a little follow up here. Why do they think that the bidding may have been unfair in some way, other than the reason that you gave, which is basically who was involved? Is there anything else about it? Was the price high, or were there people who thought that Apple shouldn't be the brand?
Well, there are concerns about whether or not the Apple tablet is the best product for students to be using. The Chromebook is something that LA Unified has since picked up because it has a keyboard, which makes it easier for the students to type with. But in addition to that, the former superintendent who resigned in October, there were concerns that he had close relationships with the contractors and that might have influenced the decision to go with Apple and Pearson.
Now, is Apple being accused of any wrongdoing in this situation, or is it just the school district investigating the school district's actions?
So what we do know is that there's a pending investigation with the FBI. It's unclear what specifically beyond the procurement. So Apple's role in that isn't clear, but we know that Apple is involved in the procurement. Beyond that, the details are unknown.
Now, you mentioned the inevitable hacking of these things, or at least the getting around of the security software by students. The students are always going to be smarter with computers than teachers in general, in my experience. Was this the school's security, or was this the built-in Apple stuff? Or what was it exactly that they defeated?
My understanding is that they were just able to reconfigure some of the security settings, but I actually don't know the specific details on that, so I would have to check and get back to you.
Got it. And then I'd like to take a step back. Could you explain to us what the Common Core Technology Project is, how it came about, and why it's important, and why it was important to have every student have an iPad in the first place?
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting premise in the first place, whether or not it's important. It's part of this larger trend happening in education reform, the idea that it's called personalized learning, that if every student has their own device, it's easier to track their performance and how fast they're moving forward in their learning. And especially with federal and state reform recently, which has mandated that we track students' performance in tests year over year. Teachers and superintendents, officials, they see personalized learning, which is the blending of some type of technology with in-class instruction, as being a way to more effectively track how those students are doing and then better prepare them for those tests.
Yesterday on MacBreak Weekly, we were talking with Andy Anatko, who's a host of that show, and he made the point that was also made to me by a number of teachers when Apple first announced this, which is that iPads are valuable things to thieves. and to put them in the hands of children who tend to be smaller and weaker than some crook who may be driving by is a terrible idea. And teachers are very hesitant to let kids leave the school with an iPad in their backpacks for that reason. And that's yet another strike in favor of Chromebooks, because nobody wants to steal a Chromebook. They're so inexpensive. They're not like super high quality. They're not. They're nice. I like Chromebooks, but it's like, who wants to steal them? They're kind of, you can just buy one so cheaply. And this was all in the context of a recent story that said that in the most recent quarter, Google has actually trounced Apple for the first time ever in the sales into the education market. So it looks like there's a lot of momentum behind the Chromebook as the education computer, and a lot of problems for the iPad as the education computer. Do you see this as well, Carolyn? Do you think that the momentum is going to be continuing to be in favor of the Chromebook, or does the iPad have a chance there?
Well, I would say that from talking with different teachers and officials, it does sound like the Chromebook is a popular choice. But at the same time, I know Apple has dipped its toes in a couple new education initiatives. Like, one thing I'm thinking of right now is like a library of some sort that they allow courseware to be available on, which is really popular with teachers right now. They're trying to figure out the best software that they can use that will, there's so much free stuff out there online right now. And especially if you're familiar with the Common Core, which is rolling out across the country right now, everyone's trying to figure out the best products to be using.
All right. Well, Carolyn, I want to thank you for coming to the show. Carolyn Porter's at WSJ.com, and you can follow her on Twitter at the surprising Twitter handle of Carolyn Porter. So not hard to find you on Twitter. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Sony Pictures, the story we've been talking about for quite a while now, is still struggling to recover 8 days after being massively attacked by hackers who may be working for the North Korean government in retaliation for a Seth Rogen and James Franco comedy called The Interview. The attack involved both massive data theft and malware that wiped computers, hard drives, including the boot records, completely clean. The damage was so severe, employees are now being handed out new computers after being forced to use pen and paper for a few days, according to Reuters. An internal memo from the studio's co-chief said that a large amount of confidential data was stolen, including both personnel data and business documents. The site Fusion reported today on the release of 26 large archives posted to a public pastebin file, some of which have since been removed, but none of which have been verified as authentic, although they seem awfully legit to me. The files include a spreadsheet listing the names, birth dates, and social security numbers of 3,803 Sony Pictures employees, including all of the company's top executives. Another spreadsheet appears to show the Sony Pictures payroll, including salaries. Another lists employees fired or laid off this year, including the reasons for their terminations. And yet another details company performance reviews. If somebody faked this data, it's really impressive. There are entire screenplays in there. So that's a hard thing to fake, is screenplays nobody's ever read before. Katie Benner, this is an astonishing hack. It is so damaging, and the idea that it may have been state-sponsored in retaliation for a comedy is just boggles the mind.
Well, I think you're touching on a lot of good points right now. So I've been talking to a lot of security experts about this hack. You're not going to speak to anybody who doesn't have a strong opinion on Sony right now. And a couple of things. One, the idea that it's state-sponsored, it's part of a trend, I think, that people have seen more and more. Cybercrime used to be thought of as something that was like almost like a business. You had the people who made the malware, the people who made it and sold it, the people who bought it in order to steal information and sell that information. And it was just sort of like it ran like any criminal enterprise or any business at all. In the last 3 or 4 years, you've seen more state-sponsored hacks, more hacks happening for sort of an ideological or political reason. The U.S. certainly is involved in this, possibly on the cyber espionage side. But then also there have been incidents like Stuxnet. So you're seeing it's not just, China and Russia and Iran, but also the U.S. and Israel. So this is just something that's been happening more and more. North Korea is a funny country to be involved because they actually have the least to lose when it comes to cybercrime and cyber sort of attacks, because they have very little infrastructure for a company like the US or Russia or anybody to retaliate against. I mean, if you look at a map of the world, if you were to pan out and be able to hover above the planet, you would see there's very little electricity in nighttime in North Korea. So they're in some ways advantaged here. So yes, it's an extraordinary attack, but it's also part of a bigger trend. And then the other thing that people have mentioned is, to your point about whether or not this data has been faked, whether it's real, everyone I think is just assuming that it's real, and people are really scrambling. Fortune 100, 500 companies all over are looking at the way that they store their data, because Sony is not the only company that puts things like employee social security numbers and termination data and all sorts of other HR information basically into spreadsheets, into Excel files that people can access pretty easily.
You know, ultimately, I fear that one of the negative outcomes of all of this is going to be something along the lines of companies are just going to ban, as a matter of course, anyone downloading anything, or, you know, I mean, because ultimately the way that these things work is that people can always be convinced to do something tricked, socially engineered. And, you know, if that thing that they're tricked into doing means launching an executable, well, then that can be anything. And how do you protect against a program that's running on a system? I guess there are ways. I think there must be ways, but it's really hard.
One thing people are talking about is like there's certain data like social security numbers that really there's no reason to have. You know, I spoke with somebody who works in a major healthcare company who was saying a social security number is such an important piece of information. There's really no reason for it to be so widely disseminated throughout an HR department. You know, that's something that can be easily separated out, stored away, need-to-know basis. It shouldn't be just in an Excel file. You know, other information like that, things like healthcare records, or even something like the reason why somebody was terminated. There's no reason why these things can't be sanctioned off and be treated as more sensitive information. Yeah, and that's a good point. It's a peculiar thing in the United States, and those of you who are not Americans watching or listening to this program may not be aware of the fact that there's a lot of weird political wrestle matches in the United States over the question of a national ID card. And there's enough opposition to the idea of a national ID card that it never happens. And so people use Social Security cards, which are never designed to be any sort of ID or any sort of, you know, they're not supposed to be used as a way to say, okay, you are this person. And that's exactly how they're used, because we don't have national ID cards. So it's like it's a peculiar political sort of bit of detritus from our weird politics in the United States, and this is how it comes around to bite us in the butt. But of course, you know, there's so much other data out there, and again, the stealing of data is one part of it. The wiping out of hard drives is another. And the point you made, Katie, I think is a fascinating one. I hadn't really quite thought about it that way, but the fact that North Korea is so backward that they have little to lose because they have little, you know, when you got nothing to lose, I guess. And so they have an advantage in the coming global cyber war, I guess, which is kind of depressing. As there's so much news about North Korea. So yes. Yeah, we can file under the depressing things about North Korea file. There's very little sunny good news coming out of North Korea saying, oh, that was a wonderful story. Yeah, except for maybe that movie, The Interview. That's exactly. That's, you know, all you can do is laugh at it, I guess. Well, 3 former Skype staffers are rolling out today a direct competitor to Skype. It's a new messaging service called Wire that combines audio calls, messaging, and other features. The company claims new technology that improves call quality, among other benefits. It also enables the direct posting of SoundCloud and YouTube files. Wire is available free for iOS and Android starting today. Doug McMillan is a tech reporter for the Wall Street Journal and joins us right now. Hey, Doug McMillan, how you doing?
Hi there. Can you guys see me?
It's close enough, yeah.
See a very narrow band of you.
Yes. Yeah, I never thought of you as a narrow person, but the Skype view we have right now is changing my opinion. So can you tell us more about what Wire can do? Can, for example, have you be on a show like this and have it be in horizontal mode? Is that something Wire can do?
I can't answer that for you. Maybe we can try that the next time I come on. Wire is essentially jumping into this very competitive field of mobile messaging apps. And the unique factor here is the pedigree of the team. It's a lot of the same people who created Skype, and including the co-founder, Janis Fries is one of the backers and advisors here. So they're saying that they have very crisp voice calling as a feature of this app, but then they also have all the things that you'd expect out of a mobile messaging app these days, like sharing photos, sharing videos. You can embed music from SoundCloud, you can embed YouTube videos, and you can create kind of ad hoc groups around interests, or maybe group with your colleagues. So, you know, it's kind of another player in this very competitive field that includes Snapchat and Kik and Tango and, dozens of other apps. But I think they're banking on kind of the experience and the skill set and the pedigree of their team.
Okay, so like you said, the field's really crowded. What do you think Wire's chances for success are?
It's hard to say. I mean, there's a certain kind of sense that if you jump into this field right now and you actually manage to get, a significant number of users, there could be a potential exit. There are a lot of, deep-pocketed tech companies out there who are desperate to get into mobile messaging right now. So, for a team that's quietly been building at Wire this app over the past 2 years and has experience in communications apps from the past, they could be a valuable asset to a potential acquirer. But in terms of kind of building an independent company to compete with like the Snapchats of the world, it might be difficult at this point. They might be a little bit late to that race.
And it sounds like a tough sell to me. I mean, you mentioned that they're counting on the pedigree of their founders. Users don't care about the pedigree of founders. They're also counting on the quality. There's some technology that makes their calls sound quality crisper. I don't think people are all that vexed about Skype's sound quality. They're vexed about the fact that it drops, that it's unreliable. If they could come up with some technology that made it super reliable, I don't know how you'd do that, but I think that could have an effect. But I mean, you see everybody, all these messaging services, including WhatsApp, including Hangouts, coming out with your real-time video calling, with voice calling, all these messaging, chatting, all this kind of stuff. And, the addition of groups, I don't think that's sounds very compelling either. So it sounds to me like their one shot, as you said, is probably an acquisition based around their technology. But it just seems like a lousy business to get into. But I'm wondering, is this, don't they have non-compete clauses anymore? I mean, why is this Skype guy able to go out and create a competitor like this, unless they're not using any Skype trade secrets at all?
I don't know the exact, that's a really good question. I don't know the exact answer of that. I wondered that myself. I do know that their voice over internet technology, at the core, I believe that it's based around an open source technology. So at least that's what Yanis Fries, the Skype co-founder, told me. So there's no indication that he has a non-compete clause or anything like that, but I do wonder about this. The Skype guys did face kind of legal suits in the past around this very issue when they sold Skype to eBay initially and left to create new technologies around voice over internet. I believe that they faced legal issues around this very subject. So I'm sure that they have all the best lawyers in the world working on this problem, and that they've addressed this and they've looked at this. But that's a good point to bring up.
Well, they better have good lawyers, because Microsoft, which owns Skype, definitely has good lawyers. They have a killer legal team. Yeah.
They have a few.
They absolutely do. So it'll be interesting to see where all that goes. And Doug McMillan, I want to thank you for coming on Tech News today. Doug McMillan is at WSJ.com and on Twitter at DMAC1. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
Intel plans to work with global eyewear giant Luxottica to make smart glasses. Luxottica may not be a household name, but it's an Italian company that controls more than, you ready for this, 80% of the world's prescription and sunglass brands. Almost all of the major brands that you can think of are Luxottica owned. The first products from this Intel-Luxottica collaboration are expected next year. Katie Benner, this is an amazing story, because, of course, Intel has been super aggressive about getting into not only just wearables in general, which I think everybody is, but they really into the sort of smart glasses thing. They just we just learned this week, I think, that they're going to be working with Google Glass to provide, Google Glass is going to be Intel inside instead of TI inside, and now they're working with Luxottica. I think there's a deal also between Google and Luxottica, if I'm not mistaken. And so it sounds like everybody's, everybody thinks, okay, Google Glass is dumb. You look like a dork. Nobody wants to wear it. It's failed. It's horrible. But I think the companies behind this know that this electronic stuff is going to recede into the glasses to the point where it's hard to tell that people are even wearing smart glasses. So I think that's what they're counting on. They're counting on fashion. They're counting on microscopic technology, and hopefully they're counting on better battery life that Intel might be able to provide some help there. So do you think they're right if that assumption is correct? Do you think that we're going to enter into a world where smart glasses are kind of a banality?
I mean, unfortunately, probably yes. This is my personal nightmare. Like, this is the last thing I want to happen. But the idea of wearable technology is here. Glasses are something that are extremely convenient. It's not a wristwatch. You don't have to look anywhere. They're right there on your face. So yes, logically, you would think this would be successful, except Google couldn't come up with a great design. I think that's one of the reasons why they decided to finally pair with eyewear makers. And Intel, it's sort of like, I wouldn't say they're hedging their bets, but they just want their chips where the products are. And if Google Glass is going to be more of a business use product, or if it's just not going to take off and they think it will, well then, why not work with more companies that have a better chance of creating something that people will actually want to wear?
I actually believe that Google and these smart glass companies would be better off just getting rid of the camera, because the camera is what kills it. It makes people freak out and think that they're being surveilled and sort of, it's like they feel like a camera's pointed in their face when they're talking to their friend or something, and it's really uncomfortable for a lot of people. But if you get rid of the camera, yeah, you reduce a lot of the functionality. You can't take pictures by winking at people, which itself is kind of creepy. But you can get notifications. You can get the stuff that it comes at you from smart glasses, and that's super valuable. And if that happened without a camera, I think everybody would be happy about this stuff. I mean, I think
there are other use cases: driving, cooking, things where you want to be using your hands. That seem like a good idea.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah. Now, the creepy factor, you're right. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Now, just want to talk briefly before we move on about Luxottica. People think, "Oh, I never heard of that company. What are you talking about?" Okay, so their brands that are owned by Luxottica include Oakley, Ray-Ban, Armani, Brooks Brothers, Burberry, Chanel, Disney, Coach, Dolce & Gabbana, DKNY, Fox Eyewear, Prada, Ralph Lauren. I mean, it goes on and on. Pretty much all of the designer glasses that you can think of are just Luxottica glasses with, where they've loaned the branding. They own Sunglasses Hut. They own all this stuff that you see. Anytime you're going to get glasses, you're dealing with this one company. And that, sadly, is why glasses are so expensive in the United States.
There's an amazing, if you can find it, I think it was about a year ago, 60 Minutes did a really great segment on Luxottica. And that's exactly what they talked about, that a decade and a half ago, a pair of glasses was $30, and now they're $300, and this is why. So yeah, if you can find it, listen to it, you'll enjoy it.
Well, in just a sec, we're going to have some updates for you, but first I want to talk about Gazelle. Gazelle has a new service, something I think people have been asking about for several years, which is that now not only can you sell your phone to Gazelle, you can buy a phone or a tablet from Gazelle directly. It's a great service. Obviously, they have been selling these things, but now they've gone direct, cut out the middleman, and they're going to provide you with a great phone at a very, very good price. You can buy a certified pre-owned iPhone, Samsung Galaxy phone, an iPad, whatever it is. And one good thing, if you have a phone and you absolutely love it, but if you're a klutz like me and you drop it and smash it, maybe you want the exact same phone, and maybe that phone is like, came out last year or something. So you can go to Gazelle and buy the exact same phone. One of the options is you can get a phone that is considered certified like new. Certified like new is the language that Gazelle uses to indicate a phone that's indistinguishable from a brand new phone. No chips, no dents, no scratches, nothing, just in perfect condition. But of course, for a fraction of the price of an actual brand new phone. If you want to save even more money, they have a category called Certified Good, which means that it shows some signs of wear, but basically it works perfectly and is very, very heavily discounted. Certified pre-owned devices are backed by a 30-day risk-free return policy, and they're able to do that because they have a 30-point inspection to make sure that every phone that they sell is fully functional. Of course, you can always still sell your phone to Gazelle. Always a great idea. You don't want to leave your phone laying around because two things are happening to that phone. Number one, it's becoming older and less valuable. And number two, the battery is sort of like wearing out and so on. It's just a terrible idea to leave phones laying around. It's not good for the environment. Get it back into circulation. Get it in the hands of somebody who'll love it by selling it to Gazelle. Gazelle has paid nearly $175 million to over 1 million customers, and that's because it's a great service. Super easy. They pay you lots of money for your used device, and there's just no reason to not take a device you're not using and sell it to Gazelle. So find out what your iPhone's worth. Take a minute and go to gazelle.com to find out. Well, we told you back in February about an innovative phone from Russia called the Yotaphone 2, which was announced then as a phone with a regular screen on the front and an e-paper touchscreen on the back. Well, now it's coming to Russia and Europe, according to the Russian government propaganda news site Sputnik. The Yotaphone 2 is slated to launch in Europe later this month for just over $600 unlocked. Yoda promises to release the phone in Asia-Pacific, Latin America, Canada, pretty much everywhere except the United States, and that is going to be in early 2015, everywhere except the U.S. They've made no mention of any U.S. release at any time. The company also announced the grand opening of a flagship store in London today, so if you're in London, you rush on over to the Yoda store. This is cool. I love this, Katie Benner. This is just the idea that there's this like funky touchscreen on the back where you can get notifications and things like that. It's just so crazy.
I wonder if you have any thoughts on this, why Yotaphone would bypass the U.S. altogether. Do you think the market's just too saturated here? Especially at this price point, you know, there are a lot of very wealthy Americans.
Well, the website where this news primarily stems from is a propaganda site run by the Kremlin, essentially. It used to have another name. I forgot what it was. It's the same site that it used to be a news organization during the Soviet Union, then they changed the name of it, and recently, I think within the last 2 or 3, 4 months, they changed the name to Sputnik. But basically, it's a propaganda site for the Russian government, and the Russian government these days is strongly anti-American. So it may be that they may be planning something, but they just don't want to mention the U.S. or something. I don't know. Could have something to do with politics and not actual plans. So we'll see there. There's also the fact that, dealing with U.S. carriers is no picnic, and it's difficult to do. There are lots of them. There's a lot of regional variations. So it's probably not the simplest place to launch. My guess is they'd be nuts to not launch it in the U.S. because I think there are a lot of Americans who would want to try this phone.
Yeah.
Just a thought. Well, here's a really horrible story for you, and I apologize for its darkness. Iran's Supreme Court upheld the death sentence of a 30-year-old man named Sohail Arabi. His crime was saying the wrong thing on Facebook. According to reports, Arabi created 8 different Facebook pages under fake names, and on those pages he insulted the Prophet Muhammad. Human rights organizations are calling for his death sentence to be lifted, but his lawyer says there's no way for him to be pardoned. So it looks like he's going to be executed for Facebook posts. We told you in late October about a new Verizon site called SugarString. The site controversially bans stories on spying by the U.S. agencies, including the NSA, but not on foreign agencies. That was okay. And also they banned stories about net neutrality. After going silent for 3 weeks, Verizon is now quietly shutting the site down. And Katie Benner, good riddance to it.
Right. This is like, what is it, branded content gone wild, This is totally ridiculous.
Exactly. Well, the New York Public Library will start letting library visitors check out portable wireless internet hubs for free, just like they can check out books, according to an exclusive on the Wall Street Journal. The program will offer about 10,000 Wi-Fi units throughout multiple branches of the library system in New York City. The program is funded partly with a $1 million Google donation. Well, our TNT fan of the day is Stephen Hunter in Winnipeg, Canada, who posted this picture on Twitter. He says he enjoys Tech News Today with lunch every day. He's got a sweet iMac there that works way better than my MacBook Pro currently does because it just died right before the show. And he's got a great view. Look at that view right out the window. You know you've made it in life when you've got a window like that at work. That is really, really awesome. And there you are, Katie Benner. And that little tiny window, that's you. Well, how do you listen to or watch TNT? Just record a video or take a picture of your setup or yourself and post it on Google+, Twitter, or Facebook. And you don't have to have a great view like Steven, just however you enjoy the show. We want to see it online. So use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT and we'll find it. That is the Tech News Today. Katie Benner, thank you so much for co-anchoring today. What are you working on these days? And how can people follow you too?
Oh my gosh, cybersecurity all the time. And you can follow me. I'm at KT Benner on Twitter. And it's probably the easiest way to get in touch with me.
And I personally recommend that everyone follows Katie on Twitter. You're an awesome person to follow, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thanks. Hope to see you next Wednesday.
Thanks. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Well, you can subscribe to Tech News Today on Yahoo. You use Yahoo. Or you can choose another way to subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. You can follow us on Twitter Tech News Today TV is our Twitter name. And please send us your thoughts and opinions via email to tnt@twit.tv or by phone. You can call us 260-TNT-SHOW. Don't miss our evening newscast, Tech News Tonight, at 4 p.m. Pacific tonight and every weeknight right here on the Twit Network. My name's Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.